Hello out there in the world, wherever you are watching from. Please let me know. Where are you? What time is it? It is 11 here in the U.S. 11 Central Time. Oh, that's very loud. I just realized the microphone is so very loud. Why is it so loud? And why is this mic, forgive me, not picking up? Okay. Not even going through the good mic here. Forgive me. For some reason, this is not, it's plugged in somewhere. Give me a second here to fix my mic situation. I hope. Second half. Good mic here. There we go. All right. Now we're in business. I hope. Okay, except I don't see anything. Oh, it's muted. All right. Hello. Now we're talking. Okay, now we have volume. It was muted over there. Sorry about that. Now we got some volume here. All right. So, international friends, this is for you. Coming at you here later in the Central Time Zone. Sorry for the technical difficulties there. So, even if you're watching on the replay, let me know. I know I see a little bit of who's on the channel, but I always like to know where you guys are watching from, or where you are in the world, because I know we do have a very international audience, which is so awesome and fantastic. I'm just gonna fix things here. That's better. Okay. All right. We'll see if a few people are going to hop on here. I did think of something specific to say instead of just hi, everybody. Because I have a student working on Cesson, and we were having a lesson today. And it occurred to me, something I've talked about before. What is the slow version of what you are practicing? Okay, like when you're practicing something, what are we keeping all of the musical stuff intact? Okay, for example, here in the Cesson Concerto, you have this. Whoops. Let's just do a little bit of the slow part. And so the student was playing this and kind of playing it like so. Which is not bad, all right, but what I was trying to get them to connect with was when you're learning a piece, slow section, fast section, whatever, you have to keep all of the musical tone stuff intact no matter what, because for a couple of reasons. One, we have to keep reminding ourselves of what the ultimate goal is, right? And the ultimate goal is to play with a nice clear tone, nice solid tone. But the other thing is that when I'm doing that during the slow section, I'm really engaging these fingers over here. That's the thing that's going to help me play, you know, the fast stuff. You know, and all the string crossings that come later. All that happens, all that learning, all that getting the hand engaged the way it's supposed to happens when I'm practicing this. But it doesn't happen unless I get the bow into the string correctly, all right? Unless I get this spinning tone, not a... Now maybe later on, once I have a better command of the piece, you know, it's like English class, or I'm sorry, ELA class, they call it. You know, you learn all the rules, and then you learn all the rules so that you can learn when to break them, right? So when it comes to tone, we all have to learn how to make this great tone, nice, strong sound, so that, you know, because there's a fine line between playing light and airy, you know, on purpose, and a weak tone. It is quite a fine line, actually. But we have to learn, you know, how to control it and which one to do at what time, and is it how to separate a bad tone from, you know, an effect that I'm trying to go for. Okay, that is the ultimate question, I guess. What else are we talking about here in Sasson? Seeing if we're gonna have any more takers here. Hop on. I'll just sit here and practice. This microphone is so unbelievably close. Sorry about that. See that right there is a prime example. If I want to slow this down, is my bow staying into the string? And am I hearing every note clearly? So easy to go. Hopefully that comes across there, across the digital divide here, because the microphone can sometimes take care of lots of things for us. But if I want to, you know, if I want to play this piece, I know it says it's only mezzo forte here at the beginning technically, but if I play mezzo forte, we're talking about learning, we're talking about getting the piece in your fingers here and making sure that I know how to make a clear tone. And I still see this as the number one thing that separates students from professionals. When you hear a professional pick up a new piece of music or something they're not familiar with, and they start to practice, you see them, you know, really, really engaged, getting the bow in the string, and playing with a great... Not... So see, playing fast. Oh, hello from Thailand. Thank you. Yeah, this is, you know, I wanted to be here because you know, I know we have an international audience, which I so appreciate. So hopefully coming on at this time is helpful. I hope it is. I hope it is. So you're sitting here talking about, you know, slow version. Are we keeping all the musical stuff intact? And that's not to say, you know, because I'm treading lightly here on this idea that I know I've disagreed with, that I disagree with the idea that we should separate, just like on a whole, you know, carte blanche level, separate technique from music. I think they are the same. I think you need to talk about both of them at the same time. Yes, there are fundamental things, there are technical fundamental things that we must do. You know, you have to play in tune, you have to play with good rhythm. But I don't think we have to throw the baby out with the bathwater and just say, oh, you have to have technique first, and then you can layer in the music later. I think it's an outdated way of thinking about learning a musical instrument, especially when it comes to this. I mean, you know, especially about, you know, what I just said about what's the difference between a way a student, especially a beginner, okay, picks up a new piece of music versus a professional. Yes. So here's a question or a comment from Woodside Story, referencing your comment. Professionals have the skills. I'll just add it here if that's okay. Professionals have the skills to be bold and strong, and I'm struggling with the piece to be. I'm still struggling with the piece to be strong and loud. Aha! Okay. I love this comment because this is this like strikes at the heart of what we're talking about. So let's just take something simple. Give me a piece. Give me an example of a piece. I'll think of one, but I want you to give me one, and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about, because this applies to any piece. Okay. And I'll try to come up with some more specifics here about what I'm talking about. So, for example, let's say I'm playing, like I had a lot of beginners in the studio this summer. So let's take French folk song. Okay. Wonderful piece. One of my favorites. I mean, it really is one of my favorite pieces. I love French folk song. So if a student comes in and they're playing French folk song like this, and you see how my hand is falling toward the screw. Okay. See how my hand is falling toward the screw. I can't make a good tone like this. I got to get this hand up. But what's going to happen immediately, as soon as I get this hand up and I get this arm and start really actually supporting my right arm the way I'm supposed to, I'm going to get a stronger sound. And it's going to sound like I'm playing too loud, or it's like, oh, I don't know the piece that well. Well, without that sound, there's no way for your brain to interpret what's going on, right? You have to have this output-input communication, you know, with yourself. And if there is no sound, then there is no input to figure out what's going on, right? And it doesn't matter how slow you go. I mean, you go as slow as you need to keep the... So if you have to go this slow... All right, so let's look here. Bach air on the G string. Do you mean the one that's printed? Is that the one that's printed in book 5? I mean the R, no, not the Arioso. Bach air on the G string in D major. I mean, I know what you're talking about. You mean You're talking about the arioso, but I guess just down a string. You mean... So that would make it... That one? I think that's the one you're talking about. But it's in... Trying to think of it in D major here. Yes, there are some big shifts. You know, I actually had a student play this on a recital recently, back in May, and we had to talk about these shifts a lot. You know, there is a shifting video here on the channel. It's the same one. Yes, Ari. I'm playing arioso. Am I getting mixed up here? Well, this one has long shifts anyway. This one will serve the purpose. Because there's like this big shift here. Do I have that Bach air on the G string in D major? You know what? I don't think I have a printing of that. Why don't I have a printing of that? I have to find that one. I know what you're talking about. Of course, it's a famous piece. Yes, Bach is not forgiving. This is absolutely true. Bach is not forgiving of intonation. I approach shifting pretty much the same way, okay? And I know I was sitting here talking about should always be musical, and some people I'm sure would take offense at what I would say about approaching all shifts the same. But I think from the perspective of a student, okay, it is good to approach them the same way every time when we're learning. Then you can get fancy and do all sorts of things and think about when you're shifting and what finger and all of that stuff. But for now, I would say, for example, this big C shift, I always put, just like I say in the video, the shifting video that's here on the channel, I love this tempo of 80. I know that's kind of loud. Let's put on a different tone here. If I want to practice, remember a shift has accuracy. Am I landing on the right note? Am I doing it rhythmically? And is it one smooth motion? Okay. Those three things are essential. Speed is not important right now. Don't think about doing it fast. I think everybody wants to try to shift fast because they're thinking, I got to get from this note to this note in a certain amount of time. And yes, you do have to get there in a certain amount of time. But when you're practicing, let's give ourselves lots of time, an entire half note actually, to do that. So... Because in the piece here, in the aria, so it's to a down bow, right? Now I know I have an open A right before that. So what I'm practicing is the last finger that I have. Am I landing this note right on the click? And I'm making my left arm really smooth. The other thing, and I mention it, the one thing I do mention in the shifting video, but I mention it very quickly and briefly, and in the 3 years now since I posted that, one thing that I use a lot more, as mentioned in the video, is doing things down an octave. For example, do I understand what this thing sounds like? So have I gone back and practiced this C octave, or just touching the harmonic so I can hear the C to C? This is so important for your brain to hear this sound. Because it came up, because I do have a student working on Hemeresque, and so of course we're talking about the, also goes to the C just like Arioso, but that D to C, that minor seventh can be a little hard to hear. But if I play it down an octave where it's a little easier, then I know instantly when I've landed on that C up there. And then I just have to do it enough times. I think, one thing that my own personal goal here for the near future is to try not to overthink everything. Of course, I am an educator, I'm a teacher. I like to think about how to find solutions. But at some point, maybe we just have to just sit down and just do it 1,000 times. And I know that sounds easier said than done. And I know we get frustrated because we feel like we've done it 1,000 times, we didn't make any progress. Well, this is when you have to go back through the checklist. Did I go one smooth motion? Did I practice it rhythmically? Did I make sure that I was landing the note accurately, right? So accuracy, smoothness of motion, rhythmical. You have to constantly be on yourself about, am I actually doing all of those things? This is why I got to live the measure on. Am I actually doing all those things during the shift? Because like this one, this one is a bear in the Arioso because you are going from an open A, and you don't get to necessarily hear the shift, all right, when you're going up there, because you don't want to hear this big slide. Until you get used to it, right? We play down in first position, and we feel pretty comfortable just putting our hand down and playing because we've done it so many times, right? I mean, you've played in first position since the beginning. You know it. You feel comfortable, and so you just put your hand down there. You don't have to hear it. You don't have to slide into it. You don't have to do anything special. That is achievable up here. It's just we don't play up there that often. Or, we play down here for so long, and then all of a sudden we introduce this. And it's like, oh my gosh, then this feels so much harder in relation to this down here. And it's just, we just haven't done it. You just have to do it more, and you'll feel comfortable. Just like anything else. Like anything else we do. Like with improvising. People, when they first start improvising, it's like, what am I doing? And I was the same way. And then you just do it a lot. And then you just get used to it. And it's like, and then you prefer, you get to a point where you're like, please, can I just improvise something? I don't want to spend half an hour writing out something, and you realize that you can, all those things that you were writing out and spending hours and hours and hours trying to pick out specifically what was the cello doing in this piece, that you can make something up on the spot and it can be just as beautiful. And you just get comfortable with that idea, and you just get comfortable doing it. Sorry, that was kind of a long-winded answer there. But I hope it helps. I love talking about shifting because I think it's great because I love this checklist that we have to go through to get there. And you know, it's one of those things that's like really challenging, all right, because we're when you're going long distances on the cello, but I love it because it's so achievable if you just do the right things, you know, get it in your ear, hear it down an octave, practice rhythmically, and you go through these things, and then all of a sudden you're doing it a lot better. So I hope that helps. And great question. Thank you for the question. I had a couple of more join us here. There are some other questions. One thing I would say is we had kind of started the discussion there with this about, you know, when you first pick up a piece and how do, you know, professionals practice it versus how students practice it. Let's stick with the ariosos here since we're talking about Bach, slow Bach stuff. Even though it's marked mezzo forte or piano on the second time around, I still, if I play with a weak tone, or I play because I'm worried about what's happening, you know, this badness over here in the right hand immediately starts to happen, right? And when I do this, I'm forming some bad habits with my bow hold. I'm not engaging my fingers the way I need to. All right, and I'm probably going to end up doing the same thing over here on the left side. All right, so, you know, make your mistakes loud and proud, as they say. And I would even say on some level that you need to play it forte, or it might feel forte to you. Like this, I'm really having to engage the bow, and I'm really having to keep my fingers, okay, on the bow correctly. Oh, you know who has a great example of this? I should put a link to this. I should find this. The Tina Guo video. Who's not seen Tina Guo's tutorial about practicing to play fast? I'm going to put it in the chat. Hold on, wait. It's my favorite tutorial ever. It's under 4 minutes. Hold on, wait. I'm going to find it. And what's crazy, one of the reasons I love this tutorial is because she's playing Flight of the Bumblebee. But you just have to be in awe of how slowly she's going at one point. I won't play the whole video because it's Tina's video. She's pretty cool. I don't think she would care. Wait, hold on, wait. I gotta find it. Where is it? Oh, come on. It's one of her older ones. Oh, there it is. Playing fast. 13 years ago. Okay. Share. Copy. Paste. Go when you have a minute. Hang out with me here. I love hanging out with you guys. I talk cello stuff. But at some point, go watch that video. Because, you know, I won't embarrass myself and attempt Flight of the Bumblebee. But, and she plays it so much better anyway. But watch that and then take notice of how slow she goes at one point compared to the ultimate performance tempo of Flight of the Bumblebee, right? I think it's just a wonderful reminder, you know, and how, you know, she's going slow and how the fingers are engaged, and, you know, how the fingers are engaged and how she's flexing the fingers back and forth in order to learn to play fast. It's like, you know, and even, you know, at her level, she's a wonderful cellist and great performer. Just, you know, the attention to detail when it comes to slowing things down, and what you have to do, and the kind of sound that you have to make, okay, when you're going slowly. I mean, just to give you an example, so like, well, the example that's on my mind is from Suzuki Book 1, from Perpetual Motion. You know, I had a lot of like I said, I had a lot of beginners here in the studio this summer, and so we're doing Perpetual Motion. What we're talking about here is slowing it down and going. I'm not going to go it's like, what am I doing? No, I got to make some sound. I got to get my arm weight in. Even slower. Bite into the string. If you haven't done it yet, maybe sometimes you have to get away from a piece. Just still thinking about this idea of like, how do I get my arm weight in? Colle bow stroke exercises help. On your D major scale. Grabbing the string. All right. Those help a lot. One of my faves. Or maybe just doing some bow staccatos. Whatever I can do to get these fingers doing what they're supposed to. This is so key to everything. Because as soon as I figure this out, okay, as soon as I'm able to loosen this up and have this mechanism working for me correctly, all right, because this is where all the music gets made over here. And until I get this working correctly, I'm not making all the music that I could be. I'm not going to say you're not making music. Of course you're making music. But are you making all the music that you could be making if this is all working for you the way it's supposed to, right? Because once you do, and you feel that freedom, and you feel that independence over here, and you feel these fingers flexing, and then you hear what kind of sound you get, whole new world opens up, whole new world for you. How do you maintain it so fluid all the time? What did I do in my training? How did I get here? I often, not to be funny, no, I say that seriously. What did I do to get here with this right hand? Because I often examine that myself, and I mean that sincerely. In college, just like a lot of college cellists, I did a lot of pauper etudes, okay? There were a lot of fast pieces, in orchestra that we just had to learn, And here's where I'm going to sound like a complete hypocrite. Yes, you have to slow things down, but at some point, and it is one of Suzuki's things that maybe doesn't get talked about as much, or is not known as much. But you have to take those pieces that you know really well, and you have to make sure that you're playing them fast, playing them up to tempo. I know now with the beginners and all the students in Book 1, way more, because I've been teaching privately for 20 years now, and something that I've done a much better job of in the last 5 years is giving them, metronome goals. Telling the students this piece has to be, like the twinkles and everything has to be at the tempo of what we're trying to get perpetual motion to, right? So, when they're playing twinkle, a lot of times they'll, students will know it really well and they'll play it, but they'll play it way too slow, right? So if you listen on the recording, this is the tempo of perpetual motion. All right. So in the beginning, when I can, the prep work to getting there is and making sure I take that piece that's a little bit easier for me and making sure that I play it fast. Same with allegro right before perpetual motion or mesong. That one goes really slow because it has all the skips in it, right? Or any of the tunes there in the beginning, or like getting into book 2 with the long ago and the variation. Definitely making sure they take that one up to tempo, because so that they learn to do the up bow staccatos quickly, right? So that's one thing you can do is if you have a piece, say, okay, well, I'm trying to conquer air on the G string right now, but is there a piece from earlier in my cello journey that I could go back to and revisit and like really polish it up? Like maybe it wasn't fast enough, or maybe it didn't have enough dynamics, or maybe I could play it a little bit more in tune. Because all that stuff, I think, also helps us loosen up this wrist. Now, what I was getting to is to saying that the speed, of a piece, just like practicing slow is important, for getting all the details, going fast is important for pushing us into that independence, right? And I have used that before with the A2 doubles and the perpetual motion doubles. And when we get to book 3 in the scherzo, it's an absolute must. You must go this fast, and we must break this hand free, in order to do it. So, if you've not done scherzo at 145 forte, that is the litmus test. Now, every once in a while, I have a student, scherzo. Okay, 145, 150 is a great test to be able to say, okay, now, you have to go and play it at 145 or 150, and also, going back to something we said earlier in the discussion, is you have to listen for the tone. I mean, if you're playing at 145 or 150 and you go, and the tone's not there, well, that's not teaching your right hand anything. Gotta have this one. There have been some students in here where I've had to go faster than 145 because they're so good. They're so just physical with the instrument, or they're so strong, or whatever the reason, or just maybe it's just youth, because at my age I would tear up my shoulder if I did this. But every once in a while I'll have somebody in here that can do this whole piece up to tempo and just move their shoulder. I won't attempt it for you. I'll get tendinitis. But that is the thing that eventually breaks them out of that, is that you have to go fast enough. In order to go fast enough and play the whole piece and not get fatigued, you got to loosen this wrist up. And that's another technique I've used before, is for students that are really having trouble. Now I use this technique very lightly, and I would say you also use it lightly. Use it with extreme caution. But sometimes just using repetition can help you. So like, can I play through scherzo, or say maybe I go back to the Twinkle's 16th note variation? can I play it for a minute straight, or can I play it 10 times in a row without my hand getting tired, right? Because if I'm really holding the bow the way I'm supposed to, hand is hanging, you know, weight is helping me. In theory, I should be able to do this indefinitely. Or at least for a very long time, right? I got to do it all the way to the end of scherzo, right? But the only way I can do that for a very, very long time is if my hand is relaxed. And if I'm getting cramped up, if I'm getting tired, if I'm finding it difficult to get to the end of the piece, well, that's when I'm forced into relaxing it. I'm forced into making it fluid, okay? I'm forced into doing it correctly, all right? Hope that answers your question. So, it's almost a 180 of what I said earlier, but there is a time and a place where you do just have to actually use speed and make yourself go fast. All right, it's not all the time, and it's rare. You know, it's in those few cases where it's like, okay, we have to go fast because we have to break this hand. We got to get this hand to be loose. Yeah, so that is a thing. So I'm glad you asked that. That's a great question, great comment. I think also, because when I ask, you know, my wife's a great player. She's a professional performer, I like to say. She plays in a quartet. You know, you ask people who play at that level sometimes these kinds of questions, like, how do you get your hand to be so loose? You know, how do you play with such fluidity? How do you do all this? And they never have a good answer. They never have a great answer. Some of them have great answers, but I remember so many guest artists at Alabama. We have these phenomenal players come in and you ask them things like this, and they would just look at you and go, well, you just do it. Anyway, and I think my answer to that is that those guys that are playing at that level, and I'm getting to this answer because of scherzo. You're gonna see why I'm saying this. I think that those guys that play at that level are so picky all of the time, okay? Not just in the fast stuff, but in the slow and lyrical stuff. Remember, we were talking earlier about, you know, I was using Saint-Saëns Concerto as an example, that you got to get into the string, that a lot of the things you're doing when you're playing slow are going to help you later to play fast. I believe that 100% sincerely, and I think the people that play at a high level are like just so picky all of the time that actually a lot of the stuff required to play fast was actually taken care of and handled during the slow stuff. So for example, Scherzo, Book 3, I was just playing. The minimoso, slower or more lyrical section in the middle, you know, don't ever negate that, because the all the stuff you need to do to really play that section correctly with your fingers flexing and changing the bow, all that stuff is going to help you play the piece faster, okay? All right, because I got to really flex my wrist to be this, you know, this very melodramatic. So be really picky in those sections, all right? And it will help your right hand. And I say picky, I mean picky about the bow changes. Are they smooth enough? Is my hand staying pronated correctly when I'm changing the bow? Are my fingers flexing when I'm changing the bow? Am I getting all the dynamics? Am I getting a nice, smooth, consistent tone from frog to tip? All that stuff. Excuse me. Angelina asked, do you have any etude books that you recommend, all right, to improve different cello technique? Man, there's so many. One I use a lot. Well, tell me while I'm answering or starting to answer this. Tell me what you're working on, if you don't mind. I might have a better answer for you. In my studio, I use the Schroeder book a lot because it has a lot of great things in it. Especially important, it has a lot of stuff asking you to play at the point. Now, when you look at this, is a great question because, like in the Schroeder book, early on, there's a lot of etudes here where it asks the cellist to play in the upper half or to play at the point, But it's a tiny little marking in the music. It says UH at the beginning or it says PT at the beginning. And it's like 90%. That one little marking is 90% of what makes that etude important for your technique in that given moment. And a lot of times that's the part that gets ignored. All right. So any technique book can be of great use or not great use depending on the level of detail, going back to that you put into it. For example, here's an etude. Well, mine's open at 33 because that's actually one of the ones I'm working on with a student. And it says at the beginning, UH, all right? And this student has this etude because they need to improve getting arm weight into the bow, okay? Especially getting sound out here in the upper half at the tip. And so when they play it, they tend to play it like this. Okay, fine. I played it correctly, right? Except I didn't play it forte, which is what the etude asks for. This is Dozauer. So the Schroeder book is a collection of different etudes. Allegro Appassionato Prelude in G major. Okay. So I'll see what I can think about here in a second to answer that. So in this number 33, it says forte in the upper half, right? I gotta do that part for this etude to really be effective. So I gotta get out here in the bow, okay? And really get the arm weight into it. Alright, that's how I have to play it. Then the etude is effective, right? I'm essentially, as you probably hear often, is that I have to turn it into a piece of music, okay? Now, in the popper etudes, they're so crazy harmonically, and your left hand is all over the place. You can't, you just kind of, in many cases, well, no, there's some that have some specific techniques in there, but a lot of those, you just learn them. And if you're learning them, you're probably going to get better. I would think with the Allegro Appassionato and Prelude in G major, just making a guess without actually hearing you, maybe somewhere in the middle of this Schroeder book, you might find some things that would challenge you. Or there's also the Prelude to the popper book, which I didn't play much. I kind of went from high school and got thrown in the deep end, and then just started learning the good old popper 40 etudes in college. But I've done a couple, really the first one, from the prelude to the high school of cello playing. There's 15 etudes in that. Sevchek has famous for the bowing etudes. Haven't used those a ton. I admittedly have stuck to repertoire a lot here in the studio. Again, in the last 5 years, I've mixed in etudes a lot more. I've come to realize my own appreciation of the etudes. I think the etudes are where we learn to practice, because etudes repeat an idea over and over and over again, and playing them and seeing how they take an idea and do it in different ways and mix it up and just really focus in on some little something. I think once you've done enough etudes, then you come back to a piece of music and you're much more equipped to find those little nuggets, practice it in different ways, break it down, you know, because when you're playing a piece of music, you're essentially creating your own etudes, right? You know, for example, and I hope this is answering your question. What was I working on? Something in fifth position. It's on my video to-do list, because I always find fifth position troublesome to be in. We're in this Golterman concerto, right? And it happens in Allegro Appassionato, right? We have to play in fifth position. But, you know, fifth position being so awkward, you know, because my thumb is jammed back here, but then at the same time, I'm expected to have all these whole steps here. I say, when it comes to etudes, make up your own, okay? Like, just make a... When you're doing this kind of improvisation, making up your own little practice something, oh man, you're going to learn it so much faster, okay? But then, as I say that, you know, there are some, just right here in the back of the Suzuki books, there's some great fifth position studies. I think it's in the back of book 4. It's like the most underused things here in the Suzuki book. The one-finger scales and the scale pattern stuff. I think it's in the back of book 3 and the back of book 4. There's some great, you know, fourth position, fifth position stuff. I would say look at the Schroeder book. Maybe put in the chat, you know, what etude books you've been working out of. There's so many. There's the Frank Home books. There's the what's the one I've seen here on YouTube that people have used a lot? The Fouillard, you know, Studies of the Young Cellist. People like that one. I wasn't familiar with that one until people started posting about it. I'd never heard of it in my life, right? It's like one of the most famous things, and I'm, you know, a pauper guy like everybody else. I would think that, you know, if you're doing Allegro Appassionato and you're doing Prelude in G major, you know, and you don't own pauper, have you done any pauper etudes? That'd be a question. Certainly the first one from the Prelude. You have the Schroeder book. You know, I always say, you know, practice things that are going to complement what you're going to learn. You know, the etude books are like, you know, our dumping grounds for our bad habits. So if you're learning Bach, say you're learning Prelude in G major, right? And you have all the string crossings. You have all these chords that your hand has to make. You know, right here in the Schroeder book is number 37, right? Where I have to play... It's number 37. This number 37, it's hard to be in tune. And when you play double stops, you're much more likely to hear your intonation mistakes because you have that other note that you have to tune your hand up to. All right. So if you already have this book, 37 is a great one. All right. If you're trying to get better at the Allegro or get better at the Prelude in G, I love this double stop study. I'm trying to remember if there's another double stop study. that happens before this. Number 29 is great. You know, again, this is like straight out of just like good practice habits of learning dotted rhythms. And some of these are taken straight out of Bach. Oh, the Lee studies. The Lee studies, like 15, 16, 17 from the Schroeder book. Lee writes the most beautiful etudes. And love these Lee etudes. All right, they're fantastic. There's another question here. What specific etude would you recommend for improving bow control, especially with the tip? From the Schroeder book, or just I actually already said one earlier here in the live stream, doing the Colle scales, right? C-O-L-L-E. And to go really, really slow, set, make sure you're doing the string wiggle. You know, can I set the bow down? All right, boom. All right, and get it ready to play and make the sound. All right, you know, and this really should be the first place I start before I ever go to any etudes, is really honing in on it on the scale. So if I'm really trying to get a better sound at the tip, I'll still show some here, but really getting this nice sound. I'm having to go back and forth, and it's a completely different weight setting my bow at the frog and setting my bow at the tip. Yes? I mean, I really have to exert a much different kind of control to set it quickly at the tip like this. So that's one thing I would say, is just to do the Colle bow stroke. And if you look up, you know, Colle bow exercises, there's a few of them. There's a few etudes in here that say at the point. Oh, here's number 16, the Lee. I love the Lee. And it says, you know, PT at the point forte, right? You have to ask yourself, you have to be the judge. Are you really playing forte, okay? And are you really staying at the tip, okay, while you're doing these things? Also, you know, the one before it, this number 15, where it says WB, whole bow. Okay, what does that mean? Well, you know, it's marked forte. Am I staying forte throughout the bow stroke? Am I going? And when I start at the tip, on that big string crossing, right? If I let myself get away with, all right, letting my hand, see how my hand is like falling toward the screw, all right, and I'm getting kind of quiet when I go up to the A string, all right, and do the big string crossing. And of course, you know, when I'm a student and I'm, you know, going through this process, I inevitably let myself get away with all of those tiny little details, right? At some point, you know, we stop letting ourselves get away with it, hopefully, all right? And that is the thing that's going to help you, all right? It could be any etude in the world, any, as hard as you want, as easy as you want. And if I leave out the details, then, that's the thing that's going to make or break whether or not the etude's going to help me. Which is why some people, some teachers would say, what's the point of etudes? I can't think of any off the top of my head, but there have been a few, famous teachers throughout, if they can across the disciplines, violin, cello, string disciplines. Not everybody is beholden to etudes. Some people just want to work on repertoire. Now, some people, that's like sacrilegious, I know, in some circles to say no etudes. But, if you really think about it and you say, okay, the whole point is to bear down on the details, you can do that in a piece of music. I think what etudes does is it forces us to see how things get broken down. I think it's also a communication tool between a teacher and a student. Like, I need you to work on being at the point. I need you to work on string crossings. I need you to do this and do it repetitively for the next 7 days. So I'm going to give you this etude to work on. I hope that answers your question. All right. Be picky. Be picky. What's another one here? Actually, this 18, there's like 5 Lee etudes here in a row in the Schroeder book. So like number 18 also says at the point, this is definitely based on Bach. So like number 18, I'm going to put this in actually in the camera. Here's a great example. Focus, camera. See those dots? Well, this book is so old. There's some markings in this book where I was assigned some of these etudes in 1992. I don't even think you can see the dots anymore there in the camera. Anyway, all right. If I do this, if I don't play at the point, all right, it says to play here. Let's say I play here. Let's say I completely ignore the staccatos. And this is what happens, all right, in the practice room. Because I've now played it, again, correctly, right? I've played all the notes. I've played it rhythmically accurate, okay? I even did the bowing, did the dynamic, okay? But I didn't get really, really strict about playing here, okay, at the point, way up near the tip, and I didn't get really strict about the staccato dot. Oh, whoops, hold on, it's gonna get loud in here. Sorry about that. I have to play it like this. Yeah. Oh, I love 18. I love this whole 2 pages. This page 8 and 9 in the Schroeder, all right, because I love the Lee ones. All right. They're fantastic. What else is in here? Number 20, which is by Schroeder, is like a piece of music. There's a few here, even in the early ones, that are like, a lot more like music than some of the others. This is a wonderful etude. Again, like a broken record here. All right. This third line, let me play it the way I sometimes hear it. All right. I know it says forte. It says forte here on the third line. but how can I control my bow? Because I have 2 eighth notes down and 1 eighth note up. Horrible bowing, terrible for getting a nice sound, but that's the whole point of it, right? Is to go and get a nice sound on that 1 eighth note up, right? And keep the 16th note short, okay? All in the details there. Same thing on the rest of it. Oh, this is the devil here at the last line, because it's in 6/8, so I have a quarter note down. I have 1, 2, 3, dun, 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 and then kind of 3 quick notes. So what's going to happen is I'm going to end up at the tip until I've run out of bow. So how do I stay and control the weights? I stay like in the balance point middle of the bow here. It's actually marked M in the middle. So I keep the nice sound without making a bunch of unintentional accents, all right? But all that stuff, none of that stuff's on the page. That's all up to me to listen and decide whether or not I've made a good, a good sound, an acceptable sound, have I paid attention to the details and, kept the notes sounding like they quote unquote should sound. Yes? Hope that helps. I guess I really like this book. There are some great ones in here. Oh yes, here's this one, 23. They're all good for different reasons. 23 here in the shorter book. And actually, you asked a question earlier about loosening up the wrist. Now, am I being strict enough with myself? Probably not. Because I could already start to hear the da 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 da, the dotted rhythm, right? It's not dotted. It's just straight 16th notes. Yada da 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 da. So I got to cut the metronome on, and I got to put myself to the test here. This is another great one. Now, another thing that's not printed on the page is if I'm having trouble getting that coordination down, getting this hand to do this, actually doing dotted rhythms in an etude like this would actually help. I know it's like, aren't you trying to play it smooth and connected? Well, the smoothness and the connectedness comes from the control, right? Am I in control? Am I able to really command this arm and hand over here to do what I need to? So I would actually, if you're having trouble with it, is to actually play it like this. Right? All right, because speed is part of it. And then reverse it also. Learning right where that inflection point is and right where that string crossing point is. Anyway, This is another kind of pretty one, all right, that's nice to play. All right, and if you can really get it going fast. Get down to the middle. Anyway, so forth and so on. That's a great etude. That's number 23. Okay. 28's a fun one. Some of these get more musical. Number 31 is just like arpeggios and playing in 6/8 and skipping around. Some of these get quite hard here. 35 is like a piece of music. This Dozauer. It's just like skipping around, you know, this is kind of like what I mentioned about the popper, like, do my fingers just know where to go? Do they just know what to do? 37, already played that one. 38 is like, again, like straight out of Bach. All right, just like, a lot of these are so inspired by Bach. And again, this one's at the point. Okay, when you play all the 16th notes, are you hearing them? Ooh, I have to brush up on this one. They start to get hard here around 38. Oh yes, 39, lots of 16th notes all in the upper half. Yes. All right. 42. Oh yeah, 42 is where the thumb position gets introduced. All right. This is a great thumb position one here at 32 because you have one little shift here to get up to thumb position, and then you stay there for the rest of the piece. So the piece starts out here. Trying to make sure I don't hit my microphone. Yeah, and then from there on out, it's just C major scale all the way to the end, thumb position. Number 42. So forth and so on until you get to the end. That's about as far actually as I've made it in this book, because that keeps, you know, for the students I have in the studio, this keeps us pretty busy here. Maybe we've done 44. I see I've got some markings there. I know there's probably a lot more here in this book. That's great. Oh, 68. Oh, that looks fun. The double stop studies. I love the double stop studies. Okay, that was quite a long answer, but it was nice to travel down through the etude road here, because I've played so many of them. Like I said, I played lots of popper in college. They are fun. They are fun. The things that they can teach us. I have some etude books. I'll have to brush the dust off of them. some on the shelf that, it's like you just collect things and you just have them. I think I might have some Frank Holmes studies over there that I've not quite cracked into, and there's some Piatti things over there on the shelf that it's like, these are famous etudes and famous etude composers, and then you have them, and then you just lose time. There's only so many hours in the day. Right? There's only so many hours in the day. And then you've got this and that to learn. Okay. I have so enjoyed... All right, is there another question? I love answering these questions, actually. So I'm good to go. If there's another question, I'd be happy to answer it. I'm so happy that you guys hung out. I love talking cello stuff. It's great to be here just to chat cello and answer questions and geek out on etudes. I love it. It's absolutely fantastic. Actually, it's wonderful. Yes, that is a whole discussion in itself. I may be throwing a couple of impromptu live streams in tomorrow. Most of my private students are on Thursday. I've been trying to schedule everybody. So that's why I didn't actually schedule that many live streams. There is one tomorrow at 11, or today at 11. It's midnight here. Maybe I am going to do another late night one, or late night for me, on Friday. I think I'd have it scheduled. Okay, since you guys are here now, if you want to save, we could save the vibrato one for Friday, and I could think about it. And yes, totally, we should talk about vibrato. Of course, I am as predictable as an old man. The first thing we're going to talk about is doing it on a scale. What am I doing when I'm practicing my scales? My scales is my place to start doing that. So, you guys are so welcome. Absolutely. My pleasure. My pleasure to do this for you guys. So, it's a lot of fun. All right. Well, then yes, count on it. Vibrato, Friday night. Be there or be square. Continuous vibrato. We will do it. I heard Thailand from Woodside Story. Where is everybody else in the world here this evening? What time is it where you are? Actually, I have an uncle who told me I should visit Thailand. That's his other... Well, he lives in Spain now. He's traveled all over the world. I remember him saying Thailand was one of his favorite places to go to get to. All right. Well, thank you guys again. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And I will see you on Friday. Bye for now. Noon. Oh, that's awesome. I love this. This is why I love the internet. This is why I love YouTube. Oh, Brisbane. Yes. Oh, thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. I actually had a student. That we were doing online lessons for a while, but I really encouraged him to go in person, actually, because he's a very, very talented young man. And where they were in, oh gosh, why can't I remember? In Australia. Oh, it's terrible. Where's my phone? So I can look it up. It starts with a C. It's going to come to me. Canberra. There we go. I had a student in Canberra. Yeah. Yeah. Right there in the afternoon. I think we had some lessons at like, it was 5 a.m. my time and like 8 p.m. there, or it was, yeah, it was always an adventure scheduling those lessons, but it was really, really neat also at the same time. Oh, I'm so glad you guys are here. That's just great. That just warms my heart that like we can like connect in this way all over the globe. That's just so fantastic. I love it so much. So makes me smile. All right. Well, thanks for sharing that, and I will see you guys on Friday. Take care.